So what we did is kind of a mapping study where we tried to find out how corruption can be a motivator or a driver for migration and kind of cause people to leave the country. We see that maybe some people leave because of corruption, because they're just fed up with the system, but that doesn't seem to happen often. But what happens often is that people reported that they don't return to their home country because it's so corrupt, so they prefer staying wherever they migrated to. Corruption impacts women very severely because it is a continuous throughout the journey, both for men and women, but women are often more vulnerable, since especially when they're traveling alone, because they don't have the same means to defend themselves, and they're often traveling without the financial resources that men are traveling with, so they have to pay more with their body rather than with money. Well, sextortion is a relatively new concept that was coined by an American NGO called International Association for Women's Judges. And it means that instead of when we think about corruption, we usually think about paying money or goods, maybe, but they're saying, well, we also have corruption where you pay with sexual favors. And sexual favors here can mean everything from actual sexual acts, but it can also be nude pictures, exposing body parts, all these things. And so far this is often not covered in discussions about corruption. And that of course means that a lot of corruption that specifically women face is not covered by our very male-centric definition of corruption. So sextortion is a new concept that is focusing explicitly on these exchanges that are very frequent. There's been studies in the education sector where this happens a lot, in the workplace where this happens quite frequently, and then what we saw in our study for, especially for irregular migrants, this is a constant phenomenon. Sexual harassment is if your boss keeps sending you emails or, touches you inappropriately. All these things are sexual harassment. If your boss says, well, if you sleep with me, I will give you a promotion, that would be sextortion. And unfortunately, that often doesn't fall under a criminal or doesn't have a legal basis to be sued for, while sexual harassment in many countries luckily does. So there's a part missing there. We saw that in Southern Europe there was a lot of reports about police corruption, and especially women were complaining that kind of sextortion was continuing to be a problem. We then did interviews in Germany and the Netherlands, and there it seemed that it wasn't so much of a problem anymore. At the beginning of the large refugee movements that we saw, there were some reports of corruption in refugee housing, for example, giving specific security companies contracts against a bribe. One of the things we saw very frequently is corruption with landlords, so that they're asking for either additional money or sexual favors to give refugees, especially women, apartments, or that they're asking refugees to pay rent, even though the rent is already paid for by official sources. So they're getting double the rent. So those are the types of corruption that we saw.